Good morning. Today we're going to discuss about family planning. We're interested in looking at the contraceptive situation in Uganda. We'll look at the uptake, the unmet need of contraception, the contraceptive prevalence rates, and then also we'll look at how contraception actually gives benefits to the mother, to the family, society, and the nation. We'll also be interested in looking at what we call medical eligibility criteria used for enrolling a mother into a method of contraception, looking at the disease status that they have, the complication that may actually arise because of these methods. We'll also be interested in looking at some of the main family planning methods, especially the modern contraceptive methods, how they work, and some of the side effects that are brought as a result of using them, and also, of course, their benefits. So if you look at this graph, the map will show the rates of fertility worldwide, and you realize that there's a high fertility belt in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, and including Uganda. That means that the number of children that are being produced are quite high. And this has effect on the population health. What is family planning? Family planning refers to conscious effort that is actually put forward by a couple to limit or restrict the number of children they have through the use of contraceptive methods. So if you put an effort to limit the number of children you want to have, you're actually using family planning methods. So this allows individuals and couples to anticipate and attain their desired number of children, and the spacing and the timing of their birth. And this actually enables couples to determine whether and when and how often they should actually have a child. And this is very vital in motherhood, in safe motherhood, because it will actually, each pregnancy a woman is carrying as a risk to the mother. It actually has a risk of dying. So let's look at the contraceptive prevalence rates. The Uganda Demographic Health Surveys 2016 shows that the prevalence rates among the married couple is 39%, and among the unmarried couple is 51%. And this contraceptive prevalence rate means that women who are currently using or whose sexual partner is currently using a method, at least one of the methods of contraception, regardless of what method you're using, whether you're using traditional, whether you're using modern, whether you're using coil, so long as one of you is using it. So that means that you actually having a contraception. The unmet need of contraception. This means that women who do not want to have a pregnancy for the next 2 or more years, and all those who do not want to have any more children anymore, but are not using any of the contraceptive methods. So when you're not using any methods, but you do not want to have a child, or you are not using a method, but you want to postpone childbearing for the next 2 or more years, and you're not using a method. That's what we call the unmet need of contraception. And this also means that pregnant women who have unintended pregnancy actually are considered to be having unmet need of contraception, as well as people who are menoric and not using the method. They actually consider to be having unmet need of contraception. If you're already using the contraception, we consider that you have met need of contraception. And the total demand of the family planning service depends on the unmet need and then the met need of contraception. So that means that you need to look at, if you're planning a family planning program, you need to consider the met needs and then the unmet needs, and then it's some that will actually give you what they call the demand. If you look at the Uganda Demographic Health Surveys again, 2016, it shows that the unmet need among the married couples is 28% versus 32% among the unmarried couples. That is still very high. Ideally, the unmet need should be very low. So that means that people who are not using the method should be a few fraction of them in the population. If you look at this graph, it shows the different things, the different years that are there. We have the unmet need that has been relatively not changing much, and then we have the prevalence that is, of course, increasing here, and then the percentage of demand that is being satisfied is also increasing up to 52%. It's important that most family planning services should be voluntary because it has benefits to the community, the families, and then the nation. Let's look at the benefits of family planning services to the family, to the woman. It actually increases health status of the woman. You have less physical, emotional strain. You have an improved quality of life when you're using a method, because children will actually give you stress. Pregnancy will give you stress. So when you actually plan this and you get the one you're interested in, it is the best. It's the best that you're doing. It also increases economic opportunities. Many women actually do not have opportunities because either they're taking care of children or they're actually pregnant, taking care of unborn child. So when you have time to work for yourself, you are more likely going to make it better. That means that you're more likely going to have an opportunity to do business, maybe to work. You may also have more energy for household activities. You have more energy for personal development and community development. You have reduced risk of getting maternal depletion syndrome. The more children you have, you're likely to develop a maternal depletion syndrome. About the benefits to the children, you have better health, especially if the child takes more than 24 months before getting another child. The chance of survival is very high. You have more foods, more resources, more emotional support. The more children you have, the more likely you actually have a strain. You have to actually struggle to get emotional support from your parents. Greater opportunity for emotional support, better education. If you're many, of course, you have to be taken to a school that probably your parents can afford. But if you are not, maybe your parents can afford a better school or can even push you further to go to do education, go further with your education. How about to the family? You have freedom to decide when you have children. You have seen a signpost of marriage stuff. You say, children by choice, not by chance. So in this case, you have your liberty to choose when you want to have a child. You have less emotional and financial strain, increase education opportunities for you, increase economic opportunities for you, more energy for household activities, you have more energy for personal development and also community development. Of course, to the father, it's important that the father needs to also know that less financial strain, reduce paternal poverty, issues of buying Pampers, a lot of requirements needed for the baby is not an easy thing. To the community, you have reduced strain on environment resources, land, food, water. You have reduced strain on the community resources like the healthcare, the social amenities that are there in the community. You also do not have a lot of strain on them. To the country, it can actually be used as an intervention to prevent STDs, especially if you're using various methods of condom. Prevention of endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer, and this is very important. some family planning methods can actually, when women on it may actually reduce risk of someone developing this. It can also be used for treatment of menstrual disorders. So these are what we call the non-contraceptive benefits of contraception. We have contraception that are divided into traditional methods and then the modern methods. The traditional methods are the reading methods and then the withdrawal. The reading is that you wait until particular days and then you say, okay, maybe this is danger period. You don't have actually intercourse. The withdrawal method, I think, is well known. Before ejaculation, the man has to withdraw. And that means that you need to time it very well. And sometimes this is challenging because pre-ejaculates can actually occur. And that may cause a problem. The modern methods are many, and this is what I think you actually need to understand. Much as you need to understand the traditional methods, you need to understand each of these modern methods and how they actually function. How the mechanism action. We have the female and male sterilization. We have the oral contraceptive pills, both progesterone and then the combined oral contraceptive pills. We have intrauterine devices like the IUDs. It could be copper IUDs or the progesterone IUD, releasing IUD. We have the implants that are implantable methods. We have the injectable methods. We have the barrier methods that there are female and male condoms available in our market. We have the emergency contraceptive pills, and then we have the standard days method, and then the lactation and amenorrhea method that used to be classified as traditional, but of course there are sound scientific proof that shows that they actually uses science. And that's method of conception could be barrier, could be fertility awareness based method, it could be withdrawal, it could be intrauterine contraception. These are what they call temporary methods. These are methods that can be reversible. And then we have the permanent methods that we will look at. The permanent methods are the two here. Of course, you can also consider total abdominal hysterectomy as a permanent method of contraception, but it's not normally indicated for contraception. But when a woman gets it, they are less likely, they are actually unlikely to get pregnant. Of course, there are some reported cases of ectopic pregnancy that occurs after total abdominal hysterectomy, but it's a rare thing, very rare thing. Let's look at the medical eligibility criteria, first published in 1996 by the WHO. These are things that we use as precautions by women and men worldwide. We have categories 1 to 4 for temporary methods of contraception. And then medical eligibility criteria number 1, the benefits is actually overwhelming and there's no restriction. You can use the method in any way. Medical eligibility criteria number 2 means that the benefits outweighs the risk that is scheduled with using the method. But generally you can use that method. But you need to do a follow-up, you need to actually keep a closer look at a mother who has that. If you meet medical eligibility criteria number 3, the benefits of using the method, the risk of using the method outweighs the benefits. You are not allowed to use that method unless other more appropriate methods are not available or unacceptable. You need a very clear and careful clinical judgment to access clinical services. So you need to be very well. The theoretical or proven risk usually outweighs the advantage of using this method. Make for the risk is so overwhelming that you are not supposed to use the method at all. conditions that represent an acceptable IF risk if the method is used. That you need to know. So how do you choose a method? You choose a method, you consider a number of factors. One, how effective are the methods, the efficacy? How convenient can someone use the method? How acceptable is it in that context? Supposing someone is a Catholic, they were supposed to use only methods, contraceptives, maybe not using artificial methods. So they are allowed to use maybe standard-based method, or they can actually use lactation or amenorrhea only, because the other methods are not acceptable for that section of the religious society. The duration of action of the method is very important. The reversibility is very important. If someone wants to maybe use a method for 2-3 months and then they plan to get pregnant in 4 months, you may need to use a method that is instantly reversible. You may also need to consider effect of the method on uterine bleeding. Sometimes this affects the uptake and retention of family planning. And then also look at the side effects associated with them. Look at the affordability and the adverse events. Protection against sexually transmitted, if any, is very important, especially if you're using a method on population that are high risk, especially sex workers. You need to use that method that can also protect them from sexually transmitted infection. There are women who have medical conditions that you need to consider when using this method, especially the cardiovascular diseases. If they have headache, especially migraine headache, epilepsy, depression, reproductive tract or breast abnormalities, maybe cancer, infections, and then maybe HIV. So that's actually where you look at the effectiveness. Of course, we'll look at the effectiveness later. I think there's 1 or 2 slides that demonstrate that. Expresses both the theoretical, when you're using it in perfect use, or the actual effectiveness. This is in typical use. In perfect use, that means that you use it the way the manufacturer has actually advised. That means that if you're taking pills and you're taking at 908, like at this time, every day should be around 908. A small deviation of 1 hour is allowed, but this is not actually practicable. Some people don't actually adhere to that extent. And also depends on the actual effectiveness. Lower due to be consistent and correct use. So the actual in typical use is normally lower than the theoretical one. And there's something called PAL index, the one that is used in doing it. The most effective contraceptive methods are the IUCs, the intrauterine contraceptives, like the copper IUD and whatnot. And then the contraceptive implants are also very most effective. And then the sterilization. In one study, it shows that the implants are actually the most effective among the most effective. So the implants are more effective than IUCs, and then the sterilization. Then we also have the effective methods. We have the injectables and the oral contraceptives, the transdermal implants, and then the vaginal ring. So that is the one that falls immediately below the most effective. The least effective are the diaphragms, the cervical mucus, the condoms, the spermicide, the withdrawal method. In another classification, realize that this withdrawal is not put as least effective. It is actually not classified because it is very unpredictable. How do women prefer methods? they can actually prefer a method because they actually have knowledge about the methods. Or most of them know about the pills. They already used it. They know about the injectables. And that's why if you look at another statistics, the injectable is the most used method in Uganda. The most used actually injectable, yeah, it's actually here. It's injectable. And this is what was there in 2006, but of course the statistics have already changed. The sterilization will have the tubal ligation, will have the vasectomy as well. The hormonal methods, it can be taken orally or injected. We have others that are actually implants, subdermally or transdermally. And then we have the intrauterine contraceptive devices, and then intravaginal implants. The oral contraceptives. The combined oral contraceptives induce inhibition of the mid-cycle site of gonadotropin secretion, and this prevents ovulation. That's actually the most accepted mode of action or mechanism of action. The combined forms, estrogen and progestin, are reliable form of contraception, is more reliable. They also have non-contraceptive benefits. This is something that you also need to remember. These COCs can be used for treating reduction in dysmenorrhea. If you have too much painful period, you can actually use that. You can use menorrhagia, you can use that. You can use, if you have a lot of acne, you can actually use that, reducing risk of cancer of the ovaries and cancer of the endometrium as well. The progesterone only pill sometimes is referred to as mini pills. Especially for women who may need oral contraception, but because estrogen put them at risk. If you have high blood pressure, heart problems, high lipid profiles, you may need to actually avoid estrogen. You're more likely to develop some breakthrough bleeding and slightly higher failure rates than combined oral contraceptives. The injectable methods, we have the medroxyprogesterone acetate, the Depo-Provera, and then we also have estradiols, sapionate, and then medroxyprogesterone acetate, cyclophane. These are actually combined injectable contraception, because you see that it has an estradiol, which is an estrogen, and then the medroxyprogesterone, which is a progesterone, as well as the estradiol valproate, and then norethisterone enanthate, which is called Mesigna. That's actually a trade name. These are combined, they are as effective as the other contraceptives, as the oral forms, but they're more convenient. At least you're sure the usage is near perfect. We have also the contraceptive implants, single-rod progestin implants, and Jadel, which is a two-rod. Single-rod is actually no plan. We have no plan in our market here. The Jadel is a two-rod implant, which is also here in our market. We also have the transdermal contraception, where it's just inserted under the skin. And then we have the transdermal contraceptive patches, also Evra. Also Evra, just wear like a patch, you just attach it on the skin and keep releasing hormone inside, and then it's absorbed by the skin. You also have the Nuvaring. The Nuvaring is actually, it has ethinyl estradiol and etronogestrel. So these are combined contraception that is inserted in the vaginal cavity and keep releasing these hormones time and again. We have the male hormonal contraception. It's available for clinical use. We have the condom for male and female, which is actually under the barrier methods. It's most effective when used with spermicides. Of course, female is indicated for prevention of pregnancy, HIV/AIDS, and then other sexually transmitted infections. We have another barrier method which is called the diaphragm and cervical cap. Also, there's less shield, the sponge, intrauterine contraceptive, safe and effective methods of contraception. We also have the IUDs. These are the intrauterine contraceptives that are present in our market. We have the emergency contraception, which is given normally after, we call it morning after pill. That means after coitus, you may need to take them, and then or when there's failure of the barrier method, maybe a condom has broken or something like that, or you fail to use it. We have the fertility awareness-based methods. We have the standard-based method, we have the calendar-based method, then the basal body temperature ovulation method, and then symptothermal methods, where you look at the rise in the body temperature, and then you also look at the changes in the cervical mucus. So you combine a number of parameters to make a decision. We have others that withdraw lactation, spermicides. These spermicides are present in terms of gel, in terms of foam, in terms of cream, in terms of film, in terms of suppository and tablet. They are not highly effective methods when used without barrier method. So you need actually a barrier method to use them. Now, the effectiveness of the spermicide reduces if the woman does not wait long enough for the spermicide to dispense before having intercourse, which is rather tedious. It's not an easy thing. And one of the preparation has monoxide 9. The bad news is that this spermicide does not protect you from STDs. How can we think that a method of contraception has failed? It may be because of non-adherence, and this is very common. Secondly, it could be because of inappropriate use of the contraception. It could be because of failure to continue use of the method, or failure of the method itself. Intrinsically, some of these methods have its failure rates. It may be because of cost and drugs coverage, so that means that people start skipping the methods, and that's so it's still under adherence. And some women do not actually use these birth control methods at all. There are things that are coming up. Maybe when we go to 50 years, we'll be discussing about advances in contraception. Thank you. That is the end, and we expect that we'll be getting some questions when I come for a session on this. Please go through these lectures, read more, generate your questions. When we come for a lecture, we would actually be able to only answer questions and clarifications about contraceptive methods. The lecture is ready here. Thank you.